Okay, it is the active camera in our environment. If we have more than one camera, you'll notice, for instance, let's duplicate this one, that the others will not, they'll have like an empty triangle. Okay, now the active camera is the one that it will render from. And the whole process of this, or the technique that we're going to be using in this animatic exercise, I suppose, is one of the things that we need to look at is how to then switch our active camera at a particular time so that we render from the cameras that we want to, for our different angles and our different shots. So the one with the black triangle is the active camera. Okay, to look through a camera, it will go to the active camera, and that shortcut button is the 0 on your numpad. Okay, and to set a different camera as an active camera, you have to press Control 0 on your numpad, and it will change to that one. Okay, so Control 0 sets an active camera, 0 on your keyboard or on your numpad goes to that active camera, or looks through it, or sets the view to it, however you want to describe it. And I am now more or less going to position this in front of my little vehicle. Okay, and this is where the next thing comes in that I want to look at. Okay, if we go down to the viewport display on the camera setting, okay, there is a tab or a drop down over there called composition guides. And what they are guides on your camera that help you with your composition. So for instance, in this one, I want to have this view centered on this vehicle, the tuk-tuk, and there are different composition guides that do different things, and the one that I want is center. So there you can see it's now made like a little stippled black line on my frame so that I know where the center of the camera is. There are also different ones for other things, like there is a thirds, okay, which helps for ruler thirds, which is also very useful. So if your focal point is on any of these third intersections, it tends to lean toward a better composition. There is a whole bunch of others as well which give you different options. Okay, and you guys can go and look at what they do and go and research what a golden triangle and a harmonious triangle is or are. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on center, okay, which helps me to position it so I can know that while I'm moving my camera, I have something to line things up with. Okay, so I want to have a view that is mostly looking inside of this tuk-tuk, but shows a bit of the background environment as well. Okay, so somewhat like that. Okay, cool. The next thing I want to look at is focal length. Okay, so just before I do that, there is another setting over there called passport out. It's got an E there, so I think that's some fancy French word, but I'm not really sure. But what that does is it just makes the outside of the frame black, which I like to work with as well. Okay, now focal lengths. Okay, focal lengths are very important, and they have a large impact on what we as filmmakers show our audience. Okay, so for instance, there is the same person, the same size in the frame, filmed at different focal lengths. Okay, ranging from I think a 25 all the way to a 200. Now that distance literally specifies the amount of distance from the focal point in the lens on the camera to the film sensor, I believe. I may be wrong, but that's how I understand it. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter. But it is the length of our lens. Okay, so for instance, a short focal length of 20 or 25 is physically a short lens, okay? And a long focal length, like 200, is a long lens. So you guys have seen those wildlife photographers with lenses that are longer than they are, okay? And that literally allows us to look at a subject closer or further away from the camera. Okay, so for instance, I'm just going to try and, okay, there we go, perfect. 20. Okay, so if we look at what a 20mm lens looks like, let's look at it over here. So if we make a camera, by default, it makes it on 50mm. Okay, these, as I said, are all in the camera tab over there. You can change it to field of view, but that's confusing. Okay, so millimeters is great. So let's go down to 20, like that example does. Okay, so our camera stays in the same place. We've changed the focal length, and all of a sudden we see a much wider frame. And to keep our little vehicle the same size in that frame, we now need to move our camera forward. Okay, so for instance, all the way to over there. Let's say over there. Okay, so we still keep the framing of the car in. So with this lens and this shot, okay, we can see a lot of detail inside the car as well. So we can see like the window winder, we can see the middle part of the steering wheel, we can see the dash clearly, we can see that sticker on the box, we can almost see the bottom of the seat over there. We can see a lot of things through the car window, okay. We have nice perspective lines on the car itself, okay. And in terms of the background, we can see that archway over there and a bit of that window, the tree, and those windows. Okay. If we now, I'm going to duplicate that. Okay, so I keep that as a thing to come back to. If we then go and look at, for instance, a 200. There we go. Okay, a 200. I'm going to set this to 200, so it's literally 10 times longer. All of a sudden, we can literally see like the little dots on that paper, but to keep the same framing, we need to move this camera back. And you can see in Blender, they also visually represent this idea of a longer lens as a longer camera. So I really need to pull this camera back and keep the same kind of framing. Okay, there. All of a sudden, this becomes very flat. Okay, we can see the side view mirrors and the car is more or less the same size. We can't see anything of the doors or the dashboard or the steering wheel. We can't see anything through the windows. The background, we have much less information as well. Okay, so even though we've got this very detailed environment, we are literally seeing none of it. Okay, and it's literally also the technical aspects of what we're doing that results in that. So what that means is if we look at, for instance, a camera with a very short lens, okay, and say there is my sensor. Everything in that field of view, okay, so this giant distance over there is going to be picked up by my camera. Okay, whereas on the other side, if we have something with a long lens, okay, and we have the same sensor, we are then limited to that field of view, which is then, I mean, at the same distance, like a third of that. Okay, and that's literally the light that is able to reach the sensor, literally a longer lens, which we need because of, to keep it in focus, and literally limits that. Okay, so it brings our field of view down by a lot. Okay, now in the film world, this can or cannot be useful. Okay, so if we're trying to do like an establishing shot of an environment, and we see a lot of it, we tend to use quite a wide lens because we'll see more. There's a lot more perspective. As you can see, this has no perspective, whereas the other one has a lot more. However, if we want to, say, focus on a character's emotion or reaction or whatever, and we want a close-up of their face, we'll tend to favor the fact that there's not a lot of detail in the background. So we'll have a close-up of their face, the background will be out of focus, and there's a lot less detail and distraction there, and we can really focus on the performance. Okay, so there are reasons why, well, lots of different reasons why you would use one lens over another. Generally speaking, in my experience, the films that I've worked on, we've worked on footage that ranges from basically a 35 to maybe a 60 or a 70. Okay, so films tend not to go the long range of like photography. So that is something that you guys also need to be aware of and need to decide for your project. So establishing shots, wider shots, generally will have wider focal lengths, shorter lenses, and if we have close-ups of characters, then we'll go zoom in a little bit. Okay, does that make sense? Cool, I think it does. Okay, so there is my camera. Okay, And I think that is all the camera stuff we needed to really focus on. Now we need to look at how we can go and link these cameras to our basic edit. Okay, so for instance, let's say that is my one angle, and the other angle that I want is like an establishing shot from the top down, looking down on this road which is full of traffic. Okay, so my second, let's just, why is everything off? I don't know. All the roofs are gone, and they're not supposed to be gone. Roofs, come back, roofs. There they are. But now it's going to be floating around under some. Okay, cool. So there is my one angle. The other angle, let's go and set that up. So I'm going to set my active camera so that I can see what it's doing. So that was Control 0 on my numpad. Then I'm going to reposition it to where I think I want it to be. So I want this somewhere up here. Okay, I'm going to rotate it. It looks down on the street. I also want it to be quite wide. So let's start off with something like that. Rotate a little bit more. Rotate a little bit more. Rotate down a bit. So I want to see that. And I don't want it to be tilted much. So wait. Damn it. There we go. And let's put it back a bit so we get some of the roofs in as well. For some reason, the local axis of a camera is, the back is Z for some reason, which is very strange. So somewhat like that. Okay, so that is going to be my first establishing shot, and then it's going to cut to the guy in the car sitting over there in the traffic. Okay, now what we need to do in Blender is we need to go and link these cameras, and when each camera becomes active at a certain time. So if we switch over to our timeline view, how this works is we create a marker on our timeline and link or bind that camera to the marker. And then it knows at that marker on the timeline to switch to the camera that has been bound to it. So first of all, I'm going to make two markers. Okay, to make a marker, in your timeline view, you press M, which will then create the marker over there. Okay, and my second marker, I want it to be about a 4-second shot for the first, or 4-second shot, yeah, for the first shot. So I'm going to leave 100 frames, and then I'm going to make my next marker. Okay, so you can see there it has made the marker. We can rename those if you want to, so you can select them, give them names, whatever. Okay. Now, this is pretty straightforward, however, a lot of people still tend to struggle with it. So go to the frame where your marker is, okay, and set the camera that you want to be active at that point to be active. So that camera I want to be on the first shot, so select it, Control 0, my numpad, look through it, okay. Then you can see if you click on one of these markers, their triangle fills up, which says that that marker is selected. So select this camera, go make sure that it is the active object or active camera, select your marker, and simply go to marker, bind camera to markers. Okay. Then it will change the display of that marker to a little camera with the name of the camera when you bound it. So you can't go and change the camera name now, and that won't update. Okay, so from there, obviously now we can't see that it's actually doing anything because we only have one marker linked. So if we link our second one, we can actually see that it will switch to the next frame or next angle. Okay, so I'm going to go to that one. I'm going to select that marker. I'm going to select the camera that I want to move to, make it the active camera. So Control 0 on the numpad. This is the selected marker, and you can press either just Control B while your cursor is over the timeline, which will then link that. Control B. No, not Control B. What's the shortcut then? That one, marker. It's supposed to be Control B. Okay, maybe the menu works better. And that would now have bound this camera to that marker. Okay, so if we now scrub, we can see it'll keep this camera angle until it gets to there, and then switch to that one. Okay, pretty straightforward, but for some reason it does tend to not work always. Anyway, so there we have our basic environment with the camera in it. Then what we need to do is go and add in our character. Okay, now as I mentioned, there are two ways to do this. Either you can go and capture this out, and then overlay your images from your thumbnail drawings on top of this in After Effects, so set it to multiply or whatever, have the images there and whatever. Okay, now remember, just in terms of this, for the thumbnails that you drew, that is so that we have enough poses that we can get the mechanical movements right. Okay, so there's a lot more than just what the performance needs. Okay, for this, we only need like the storytelling poses, if we can call it that. Okay, so the biggest things, the changes in actions, we don't need to see all the animation in it. Remember, it's supposed to be a quick tool. We don't want detailed movements and all of that. We don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and that's why you guys only have until Thursday to do this. Okay, so I'm not giving you a lot of time because I don't want you to spend too much on it. It's supposed to be a quick, simple thing. Basic environment, drop in a few cameras, a couple of thumbnails, and it's done. Okay, so if you spend more than a night on it.
So,
yes.
If we want to have some things in our car, can we download things just
No. 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 Basic stuff. Literally, if you want a tree, take a square, extrude it up, add some planes on top of it, spend 2 minutes making a tree. Okay, so don't have it communicate, but we don't want to spend time on this. Okay, we're not modeling environments now. We're figuring out where our character and where our camera is in an environment. That's it. Super simple. Okay, I'll share another video with you as well that I did a couple of years ago with another group on like basic environments, but even that's too much, but it'll help. You guys are doing environments next module with Mikola in any case. Okay, so as I was saying, either we can then go and overlay our images that we've already drawn. So we go and pick the 10 most important ones that tell the story, put them in, we're done. Okay, or we can do it just in Blender, which I actually think is better. Okay, the only thing is it's digital, so if those of you don't have tablets or those kind of things, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. I think that's working. There we go. Okay, so how this works, okay, the drawing system in Blender is called the grease pencil. Okay, and let's, first of all, I've made a new collection for grease pencil things. I'm also just going to turn off my environment, but I want my car. So let's just scroll down and take the car and drop the car into, wait, just the scene collection, so I can turn the background off. Background, windows, building, door, bits, small roof, plants, reindeer. Okay, cool. So that's all I really need to draw on this. Okay, so I make a new collection, so I've called it grease pencil. Okay, now what the drawing in Blender is literally curves, like 3D curves that have a stroke on it. Okay, so it's still a 3D object. So if we want to change its color, we go and change its material. If we want to edit it, we can sculpt in it, we can go into edit mode and literally move the points around, we can smooth it out, all of those things. Okay, and to access it, or to create it, I'm going to place, first of all, my 3D cursor just more or less where I want to draw. Okay, because it's a 3D object, so it works in depth as well. It's not just in front of your camera. Okay, and what we need to add is something called a grease pencil empty object. Okay, so the grease pencil blank. Okay, the stroke and the monkey are just examples of things. And that will basically just give us a null. Okay, I don't know if you can even. Where's my rotate not working? I don't know if you'll even see it. Grease pencil. You'll see in the grease pencil collection. There it is. Okay. I don't know why it's not showing, but it's literally just the null. Okay. Then with that object selected that you can't see, If you go into tab and go into draw mode, we can now go and draw. Okay, so because I have mine set to random color, it's actually just assigning a random color to it. But if you have it on material, it will use the material that you've assigned to it. Okay. Also, when you're doing that, if we go into our dope sheet and set this view to grease pencil, this is literally now a really cool tool for animatics, because if we go and change the frame and draw again, it literally goes and adds it as a new image. Okay, so we can very easily go and, let's say, here where we cut to this angle, let's just delete that one, go back to 100 and say, okay, cool. All of our tools are either here somewhere. Press T. Okay, there are the tools that we have. I mean, there's a fill and an eraser and a new cutter that's new. Primitive objects. I'll link a few grease pencil tutorials as well if you guys want to go into more detail. But basically, the buttons for it are all over here somewhere. They've changed it since I've last used it. There's onion skinning as well, which I'll look at now. I'm just actually looking for the brush options. Oh, over here in the actual tool tab. So there's a radius and there's a strength, which is all pressure sensitive. So it's got, you know, pressure sensitive attributes. The material, as I said, is the actual color of it. For this, literally, if you're just making black lines, it's fine. If you want to go and color it in and be fancy, by all means, but it's not necessary. Okay. Remember, as I said, it also works in 3D space. So if we have our scene, and there is our man sitting, and he's angry, so I'm giving him some angry eyebrows. And he has a mustache. Okay. There he's sitting, and we can say it's important for the story. Why are my lines they're going behind the couch. Okay, so there, that's why it's disappearing. It's literally drawing in 3D space, as you can see. So I'm just going to go into object mode and just pull it forward a little bit so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay. And as I was saying, for the story, it's important that he has his hand on the steering wheel. He's sitting there, and he's all grumpy. Okay. His other elbows leaning against there or whatever. Who knows? Okay. Lovely drawing. And then you go to the next frame and you say, okay, well, here he's, I don't know, he fell asleep and now he's leaning against this thing. So there he is, snoring. Hand still on the steering wheel, whatever. Okay, so really quick, really easy, just communicating what we need to do. And if you really want to, we can then go and duplicate these frames, so like always, and you can edit on them. So over here, we can go into sculpt mode, for instance, and go and do whatever we want, if we really felt it's necessary. Okay, so that's just more cool stuff about grease pencil and anything else. And that is it. So there you can clearly see, goes from there to there, there's our character who falls asleep driving. The story is finished. Funding secured. Okay, any questions on that?
So the cameras are doing still shots? Do you like kind of like curve it in?
No, not yet. Maybe when you guys are finished animating, we can move them a bit, but it'll be very subtle.
That's
No, I don't want to.
cameras.
Let's say 2 is your midpoint. If you need to go more than that for any particular reason, we can discuss it. You know, if it's motivated, then it's fine. 1 is also okay. It's not a requirement. Just 2 gives us just a little bit of contrast and some variation in our environment. Cool. Anything else? Okay, so for next week, I say next week, next time I see you, Thursday. Thursday is the only time we have to look at this. Okay, it's the last class we have, so it's there. Basic environment, okay, it can be rough. It just needs to communicate. And narrative-wise, it needs to have the things there that it needs. So if you guys are sitting at a table and he's holding a thing, at least have the thing there at a table and some detail in the background. Okay. Blender is quick to model basic things in, so I mean, I don't expect, I don't want you to go cube, cylinder, plane, and just move them and be done. Like spend like an hour or 2 hours on their whole environment, like at most. Okay. And you know, dropping your cameras in will only take a couple of minutes, and then drawing your poses another hour or two. So if you spend a night or two on this, then great. Okay. So the idea is you can bring it on Thursday. If your poses aren't entirely done, then that's okay, but I mean, it really shouldn't take long in any case. But definitely the environment, the camera, the timing, the audio needs to be in. To link the audio, just so that you know, if you go into the video sequence editor, all you say is add sound. So say add sound, select your sound, and you drag this just to start on frame 1. Okay, so you can just drag it around. And then if it doesn't play, what you need to do is in the timeline, go to playback and say audio scrubbing. And then it should work. Okay. Okay. It doesn't sound like it just because it's playing random frames of it. But if you play,
Give $3 right now for a pickled buffalo tongue.
it's all there. Okay. And that's it, I believe. Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, I just want to show you. I'm going to give you guys some grease pencil videos to go and look at if you want to. Grease pencil's very, very cool, very usable. They've changed it a lot, which makes it good. Look at stuff that has been posted in the past couple months, if anything. So I'll link relevant ones that were in. It needs to be in 2.8. 2.79 grease pencil was shocking. So this particular video is a really nice overview of everything. I mean, we can really do a lot with it. It's a great tool. I really think they should incorporate it more. So, as an example, you know, it's really, really, really easy to use. Very nice just to quickly sketch stuff out, and it looks good as well. The brushes work nicely. It feels good. It's nice to draw in it. But having said that, you don't have to. You can, and you're welcome to draw anywhere else and scan it in or photograph it or whatever and overlay that in After Effects or whatever. Okay, probably even here. So I'll link a couple of these tutorials for you guys. As I said, there's plenty cool stuff that people have done in it. Here's another very simple one. Anything that was done in 2.8, you guys can use as a reference. Okay. I'm also going to link this. And this is purely just if you guys are interested. It is unfortunately not in 2.9, I think in 2.8, it is in 2.79. It's a video literally from, I think 2 years ago that I made. And it's just an example of how you can approach doing basic environments and stuff in Blender. So really just low poly things, okay, and getting a nice. So this is like part of a third year elective, but it's applicable to what you guys are doing now. Where, I mean, doing easy stuff, but not very detailed and quick. So I mean, doing this whole thing maybe took half an hour. And for animatics and stuff, it's cool. So if you want to go into more detail and show some more stuff in it, there's lighting, you can have some shaders on it, only if you want to. Okay, so I'm not saying this is necessary at all, but I'm saying those of you who are in the mood for more detail in it, I'm not going to tell you to stop. Okay, so here, Peter Piper, tree. Okay, basic tree. So started with a cylinder, in fact. And just, you know, I don't want you guys to go and download things and spend too much time on it and look for stuff. And really, rather get the practice in doing something again, and very small and quick and easy than anything else. Cool. So I'll link this for you as well, which is nifty. I think is it only that one example? I have a different one where there's now a lake and trees and stuff. So here's also little basic trees, Peter. But anyway, that I just thought you guys may find interesting.
This is all on your YouTube channel.
It is. I'm going to post this on Classroom with the other videos as well, but I think you guys might find useful. Okay. That's it. Cool. I'll see you guys on Thursday. I'm going to be giving you guys feedback on Classroom for the stuff that you guys have submitted. Apparently there was some issues with Hangouts with Classrooms yesterday, so just make sure that it is by now uploaded. Okay.
That's